Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of Talking God and Politics with over there, Mark, Mike, and my lovely wife, Denise. Mark, how you doing, buddy?
Hey, how's it going, guys? Doing
Going
well,
well.
doing well.
Good, good.
Another good week in the coming of the golden age
The
in
golden
the
age.
Trump administration, the coming of the golden age of America. So doing
Amen.
well.
So far, so good. I'm kind of excited about these deportations of the illegals, but even more importantly than that is finding 85,000 children that the previous administration said they didn't know where they were. They weren't responsible to find them. And yet we
Right.
all know that they were facilitating the child trafficking. And all of a sudden, Trump can find 85,000 of them in 1 week.
Yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
That was insane.
Yeah. I think Trump's guy, Tom, what is it? Tom Holleran? What's his last name? Yeah. He's doing a great job, man. And every time he gets interviewed, he just shuts them down.
Yeah.
He's doing a great job.
I think also what it means is that ICE probably knew where they were all along.
Right.
And were being prevented from being able to do their job.
Yep, that's true because it seemed to happen very quickly.
Very quickly.
Like, for that many children. Seems a little odd. There's no doubt.
And I'm seeing reports now. Brian Cates and I even think Jack Posobiec is reporting that Gitmo, Guantanamo Bay, is going to house up to 30,000 of the worst illegals that are captured. Hopefully not for long, because I certainly don't want to house them on our taxpayer dime, but
Yeah, and all the countries that seem to not want to take them back are taking them back. Mexico turned, Colombia turned. So yeah, it's good.
Well, what do you got? We've got some videos that we were gonna share on some different topics, but you had some stuff. Why don't you tell us what God's placed on your heart?
Well, I had a couple of things with all the pardons that he's done. I think it was good to see Beverly Williams be pardoned. She was the woman that, I don't know the full details, but the Biden administration basically jailed her for praying outside of an abortion clinic. And he pardoned her. He's also come out, when he campaigned, he was the only candidate that went on to the Libertarian Convention and spoke. He also was the only candidate that went to the Bitcoin conference and spoke there. And the two things he did is he said, and he said it after he pardoned him. So in both places, he talked about Ross Ulbricht, who was a kid, really. I mean, he was at the time in his early 20s, and this was back in 2010, 11, maybe. And he really got behind the idea of Bitcoin. And so he started a website that basically a dark website, what you call the dark web. And the dark web just means that it's very difficult to find. You do things to hide it from search engines. And the website was called Silk Road. And yes, there were a lot of nefarious things going on there. Most of what was taking place was drug transactions, which, being a libertarian, I don't, that I've always said that the war on drugs is a war on personal freedom. If you want to be stupid and do drugs, go ahead. The federal government nor state or local government should not impede that unless you do something to someone else, and then it should become a crime. But to yourself, who cares? So anyway, he started this Silk Road and just kind of let people trade whatever they wanted. But the only currency was Bitcoin. And he got this going for, I don't know, maybe 5 years, 6 years, and the government finally caught him, of course, set him up. The FBI finally found him. They sentenced him to two life sentences plus 40 years.
Right.
So there was no way he was getting out of prison. And his mother really spent all those. In fact, no, it's longer than that. The website. So he has already been in up until Trump pardoned him. He was in jail for 10 years, and his mother would go to these Bitcoin conferences and libertarian conferences and really she was always trying to get enough signatures to get him out. She was the one really fighting for him. And so now 10 years later, Trump held his promise to pardon him. And it was a full pardon, by the way. He is fully pardoned. There is nothing on his record or anything. And anyway, he went on X and said how grateful he was for that. And I'd like to play that. Let's see.
Oh, do I need to pull it up for you?
Yeah.
I'm afraid. Last night, Donald Trump granted me a full pardon. I was doing life without parole, and I was locked up for more than 11 years.
11 years, okay.
But he let me out. I'm a free man now. So let it be known that Donald Trump is a man of his word. Thank you so much, President Trump, for giving me this amazing blessing. I'm so grateful to have my life back, to have my future back, to have this second chance.
Really, it was all for running a website too. So, and here's the one with here, pop that back up. This is the one from Beverly.
Look at mama. Look at mama.
And this is her literally coming out of prison.
Look at us.
So those two were kind of a big deal for me. You know, it was good too to see he's also going to release all of the documents, not just for JFK, but for the Martin Luther King documents as well. So I think that was a pretty big deal as well. It's just good to see that he's got these libertarian ideas, and that, you know, that's why I voted for him the second time, because, you know, the first time I was like, I was still in that mode of not really voting for in federal elections. I called it a study in futility. But when I saw all of the things that he promised on his campaign that he fulfilled, there was a few things he couldn't, you know, like getting rid of the federal tax on suppressors for handguns. That was one that, you know, a lot of gun owners wanted, but he couldn't get that done. Who knows? He may have tried. You know, he was new at this. And so the second time I voted for him because I said, you know, and a lot of my libertarian friends were like, you know, what are you doing? He's part of the problem. He didn't drain the swamp like he said. But I said one of the main things is that when he tells you he's going to do something, he does it. And I think this campaign is proving that everything that he has run on and said he would do, he's doing. So,
well, that's a part of his slogan, you know, promises made, promises kept.
Yep.
You got anything else, or you want us to play a couple things?
No, we'll get into your stuff. I think I'll scroll through here. If something else pops up interesting, I'll bring it up later before we end the show.
Okay. This first one is an interview with the judge and Douglas McGregor. I think he's a general of some sort. Anyway, he has some great things to say, very honest things to say about Trump and the Middle East and Bibi and who's really running the government, which was interesting to hear him say it because he's been on Fox News, he's been on Epic Times, he's been on all these, big networks. So let me get that, cue that up here. Let's see what minute marker. It was 8 minutes.
Anyone who thinks that the current marriage of convenience is anything but temporary between Israel and Turkey is wrong. So you put all of those things together, you put together the problems that exist in Egypt and Jordan, the wider, broader Arab population. I think we're still a long way from any regional war avoidance. We're still on a path to it. The question is not if, but when.
So what do you expect President/General al-Sisi and King Abdullah to say to President Trump when he says, I need you each to take 750,000 Palestinians?
Well, that's not going to happen because then they will be seen as cooperating with us and the Israelis to liquidate the Palestinian problem. You liquidate it by removing the population, either killing it or driving it out, and eliminating the infrastructure. And that's what they would be accused of doing. So General Sisi or President Sisi is under no illusions about that. He would be gone in an instant. Right now, the Egyptian military is preparing in the Sinai for what they think will be a war with Israel. I can't imagine what King Abdullah in Jordan is doing. That place is barely afloat. And that would collapse almost overnight if he admitted more Palestinians to Jordan.
Why would the Israelis and the Egyptians have a war? What would it be over?
Well, I think the Egyptians look at the Greater Israel Project, look at the map, and the map stretches all the way to the Nile. And the Israeli view of the Egyptians is no different from their view of the Arabs in Gaza or anywhere else in the region. And remember that Sisi, as well as other Arab leaders in the peninsula, are seen as cowards, people that stood by while the Israelis slaughtered their brethren, people like them. So I think it's very clear that at some point in Sisi's mind, he's going to have to stand his ground and fight. And that will come at a point when he thinks it's prudent to do so. And remember, the whole region is on eggshells. Nothing is certain at this point.
Colonel, Prime Minister Netanyahu is coming to Washington next week at the invitation of the president. Do we know what the president's Gaza policy is, or can we conclude what it is from the comments he made about removing the population, giving 2,000-pound bombs, as you mentioned earlier? And then, of course, there is Mrs. Adelson, who seems to get whatever she wants.
First, I think we need to understand that without President or Prime Minister Netanyahu's support and his direction to the wealthy forces inside the United States to support Trump in his bid for election, President Trump would not be president of the United States at this point. Let's be perfectly blunt, because the forces that brought him to office were very heavily financed by Mr. Netanyahu's strongest supporters, number one. Number two, they also prevailed upon those who may be friendly to Israel, but who don't like Trump, to effectively stand down and not oppose Trump's election, all on the grounds that Israel's best shot at dominating the region and achieving all of its aims under this rubric of Greater Israel Project comes with President Trump's election. So that's a fact. President Trump is inviting him here. I'm sure this will be a very happy reunion for everyone. And President or Prime Minister Netanyahu will reaffirm the support of everybody in the United States who has invested heavily in Trump's election and wants to stay on Israel's good side and avoid a fight with the lobby. So I think that's number one. Number two, what does Trump want to do? Trump would like all of this to go away. Very clear. He'd like this to end tomorrow morning, but he feels incapable of doing anything to stop it. And I think he's right in the sense that unless you're willing to cross Netanyahu and the lobby and their supporters, the people that control our government and the House and the Senate,
there it is.
if you're not willing to do that, then nothing is really going to change.
Okay, so did you hear what he said? He admitted that the Israelis run the government. That was a huge admission.
Oh yeah, he said the supporters of Netanyahu, and they're it's. I mean, at the end of the day, it's all about money, right?
Unfortunately,
Matt Walsh came out today and said it was kind of a funny exchange. Oh man, I wish I could find it, but he said, "Yeah, I am for abolishing all foreign aid." And of course, I'm going to see if I can find it here.
Well, while you're looking for that, I did want to make a comment about the video we just watched. Did you notice when he was asked about, well, what does Israel have? What kind of beef does Israel have with Egypt? He says, you don't understand. They understand everyone in that region, all of them, the same way that they viewed the Palestinians in Gaza, which were as animals to be mowed over, to be controlled, and to be enslaved. When you hear from the globalists that they view us as cattle, that terminology comes directly from the Talmud, which again believes anyone that's not a Jew was created without a soul, are like animals to be enslaved and to serve the Jew. So there's a direct correlation. So when Christians are over here in the United States and they're supporting biblical Israel, what they think, no, they have blood on their hands because they're not studying the Bible. So I just wanted to throw that out.
Yeah, so Matt Walsh came out and said, I want to end all foreign aid to all countries. And Ian Carroll said, like Israel?
Yeah, we saw that.
And he fired back and said, I've said publicly like 100 times that I want to end all foreign aid to all countries, including Israel, and yet some people still seem to post responses. But Ian Carroll came back and told him, look, it's a good thing that you didn't cover that up, that you want to see all foreign aid. Now, my question is, when Trump came out the other night and signed the executive order stopping all foreign aid for 90 days, did that include Israel?
No, it did not.
Or Ukraine.
No. Okay, right. But they also followed up saying because of some of the treaties that they have in place, he couldn't do it.
No, it's not. And that's something that the colonel addressed as well in that interview when he said, they had mentioned about all the 2,000-pound bombs that were already sent over there. Trump was trying to blame, well, I'm just honoring what the previous administration was doing. And the colonel said, no, that's not true. He could stop that immediately. He is he's not entitled to do anything that the previous administration did. So I think that's just a scapegoat on Trump's part.
Okay. Gotcha.
So we have another clip of the whole JFK issue. As you know, that's slowly being rolled out. There's like 5 million pages. It's crazy the amount of pages. But we have someone, Tucker Carlson, usually is a little late to the party, kind of starts nibbling on the outer edges of everything, right? Like he was at Fox when he was trying to expose, Klaus Schwab and the World Economic Forum and some of the globalists there. Well, here he's talking to a gentleman who's very knowledgeable about the JFK assassinations, and they're starting to deal with the Israel issue. So let's pull that up. Let's see what you've got. I've got your stuff and I've got my stuff in here now. So there we go. And this is 2440.
Of that impulse, we need to order effect close to the heart of the second of them, a mind control program. I mean,
almost 60 years. Yeah, I think it has a little bit
that's withheld and is in the JFK collection right now.
Did come out of, the most prominent of the mainstream media, the Washington Post. Have you been slandered as a nutcase conspiracy theorist? I always wondered, what do they do with you exactly? Because you're not coming from the fringes, you were coming from right from the middle of the establishment.
I mean,
have you been attacked?
Yeah, I mean, the problem that they have is that I don't have a conspiracy theory, so the label of conspiracy theorist just doesn't apply. And the other thing is, nobody can deny the stuff that I'm talking about. Let me mention another JFK document that's very important and I think will interest you. One of the things that's withheld and is in the JFK collection right now is the testimony of James Angleton in 1975 to the Church Committee about the Israeli nuclear program. This is a 113-page document, and it's heavily redacted to this day. And the redactions clearly pertain to Israel. Now, is this an assassination-related document? Absolutely. The Assassination Records Review Board said this is an assassination-related document. It meets the statutory definition, okay? If the president and this effort are serious, that testimony will be declassified because Angleton controlled the Oswald file on the one hand, and he was a contact with the Israelis on the other. So it belongs in the public record. That's another test of, is this serious effort?
So let me ask you, why in the world would the Dimona project, the Israeli nuclear program, which has never officially been admitted by anybody but Israel, what would that conceivably have to do with the assassination of JFK?
Well, it relates to what Angleton was doing in 1963, okay? There were profound conflicts between Israel and the Kennedy White House over the nuclear program. Kennedy was pressing for on-site inspections, which the Israelis resisted because on-site inspections would have realized that they had a bomb-making program. So this was a real bone of contention between the Israeli government and the Kennedy administration in the summer of 1963, at a time when Angleton controlled the Oswald file. So just the juxtaposition of those facts means that everything about it should be on the public record.
And Angleton, who was the counter intel chief at CIA, James Jesus Angleton, he that's quite amazing. Did he support, do you know his view of the Israeli nuclear program?
I mean, it's very hard to tell sometimes from this testimony, given all the redactions. But yeah, that's, was he secretly supporting Israel against JFK? That's one of the questions that needs to be answered in disclosure.
So why would he be asked about that in a congressional hearing? That's quite amazing.
Well, because in 1975, the CIA had been revealed to be running assassination programs, to be running a mind control program, to be spying on the anti-war movement, spying on Americans. So, he was hauled before, and Congress, who was completely in the dark, had been duped or wanted to be duped. Suddenly their eyes woke up and they had to explain to their constituents, hey, what have these guys been doing in our name? And so Angleton was called in, and this was all, executive session testimony. So he was grilled about lots of things, about domestic spying, about the Israeli nuclear program, about the JFK assassination. Interestingly enough, he was not questioned about Oswald because even the Church Committee did not know the extent of the pre-assassination surveillance of Oswald. That's only something we've learned since the 1990s.
It is interesting. I mean, I have no idea what the truth is, of course, but it is interesting that one of the only major policy changes that Lyndon Johnson made in the year after the president's murder was, on the Israeli nuclear program, which he accepted.
Yep.
Wow.
So again, and this is nice because it's coming from Tucker, someone conservative, someone that most people would not view as a conspiracy theorist. So again, notice Tucker's approach. Tucker gets the experts on. He plays dumb. He asks the important questions. He lets them do the work for him. And then he's really good at that, I've noticed. He knows a lot more than he leaves.
Well, that's what I was about to say. Is I think he knows more than he lets on. He's like, I don't know what the truth is. He knows what's going on. He's just playing it out.
Exactly. Now here's a guy that my man Stu Peters. He does not beat around the bush. He is rather direct. So let's hear what he has to say here. No. There we go.
We live under the empire of lies. Okay, so when the government says this is true, you tend to be able to find the truth 180 degrees the opposite direction. How much incriminating information was burnt back in the 1960s or never written down at all so that it would never get out and so that the public would never have the full story? Because listen, we all have to remember who JFK was going up against. I mean, let's get down to brass tacks here and cut the shit. JFK didn't want to give Israel nuclear weapons. JFK wanted AIPAC to register as a foreign agent. JFK challenged the Federal Reserve. He wanted our money to remain backed by gold and silver, and he wanted to print real money through the U.S. Treasury, not fake money backed by nothing but debt through the Federal Reserve. And on top of that, he wouldn't wage war on behalf of the very same crooks that were controlling our money supply. JFK was bad for the Rothschild criminal central banking cabal. He was bad for Israel, and quite frankly, he was bad for the Jews. So yeah, there were a lot of reasons why our government and the people who are really running it and the people giving them their money would want to take out JFK. So what's the likelihoods that they took notes on that and wrote all that shit down in some official file somewhere? And there's also plenty of reasons why they would want to make sure that no matter what files were released potentially 60 years later, that they would never get caught. Because the files would be full of disinformation, and anything of value that did manage to make it through the cracks and into those files would be redacted or blacked out.
Right.
Because if the American people found out for an absolute indisputable fact that Israel, our so-called greatest ally in its global legion of dual citizen Jews and bought and paid for Shabbos goys were behind the murder of President John F. Kennedy, people would be pretty pissed off.
Yeah.
If they found out that Kennedy was murdered so that...
So it is going to be interesting to, as this comes out, what's going to happen. You see more and more people coming out about, okay, yeah, why are we supporting this country so much? Why is it they get a pass on everything? And I think, people are starting to question these things.
Yeah, we had one more video. It was Greg Reese, and he is criticizing Trump's Gaza policy. I did want to, this will be the last one, and then we'll talk about this whole subject because I think it's pretty important here. Let me see if I can find it.
Which Stu Peter quoted the Empire of Lies, which was Ron Paul out of his book, The Revolution Manifesto, which he said, truth is treason in the Empire of Lies. So I guess Stu Peters is a Ron Paul guy. So you know what? I'm gonna have to really start paying attention to this guy now.
What I like about him is he just says it like it is, like I do. He doesn't beat around the bush. He doesn't do the nibble around like Tucker does. He's just, I like him because he's bold. All right, hang on a second.
Never you, Mr. President, that you can keep the ceasefire in Gaza and conclude the three phases of this deal
not confident. That's not our war, it's their war, but I'm not confident, but I think they're very weakened on the other side.
Do you support the two-state
Gaza, boy, I looked at a picture of Gaza. Gaza is like a massive demolition site. That place it's really got to be rebuilt in a different way.
Do you plan to help rebuilding Gaza?
I might. You know, Gaza is interesting. It's a phenomenal location.
That's
on the sea.
horrible.
Best weather. You know, everything's good. It's like some beautiful things could be done with it, but it's very interesting. But some fantastic things could be done with Gaza.
How do you see the future in governance for Gaza?
Well, it depends. I can't imagine you could have, well, you certainly can't have the people that were there. Most of them are dead.
Yeah.
While much of the world decries genocide, Trump recently brought up the great real estate possibilities in Palestine. This is reminiscent of his son-in-law, Jared Kushner's recent comments, whose family is also in the real estate business.
There are real fears on the part of Arabs, and I'm sure you talk to a lot of them, who think once Gazans leave Gaza, Netanyahu's never going to let them back in.
Maybe, but I'm not sure there's much left of Gaza at this point. So, you know, if you think about even the construct, like, you know, Gaza was not really a historical precedent, right? It was the result of a war, right? You had tribes that were in different places, but then Gaza became a thing. Egypt, you know, used to run it. And then, you know, over time, you had different governments that came in different ways. Both sides are spending a fortune on military. I think neither side really wants to have, you know, a terrorist organization enclaved right between them. And Gaza's waterfront property, it could be very valuable. It's a little bit of an unfortunate situation there, but I think from Israel's perspective, I would do my best to move the people out and then clean it up. But I don't think that Israel has stated that they don't want the people to move back there afterwards.
Trump recently suggested that the Palestinian people be moved into other nations.
I'm talking to General al-Sisi tomorrow, sometime I believe. And I'd like Egypt to take people, and I'd like Jordan to take people. You're talking about probably 1.5 million people. And we just clean out that whole thing. It's, you know, it's over the centuries, that's many, many conflicts, that site. And I don't know, it's something has to happen, but it's literally a demolition site right now. Almost everything's demolished, and people are dying there. So I'd rather get involved with some of the Arab nations and build housing in a different location where they can maybe live in peace. Temporarily, or it could be either. It could be temporarily, it could be long term.
The claim to Israel by the Zionists is that the land was promised to them by God thousands of years ago. But a 2012 Johns Hopkins study shows that Ashkenazi Jews are not Semitic people. Geneticist Iran Alek found that European Jews were primarily the children of a Turkish people known as the Khazars, who converted to Judaism between the 7th and 9th centuries. Next week, President Trump will be meeting with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Trump has received over $200 million from the Israeli lobby, who want more than just Palestine. And Trump knows that Netanyahu is not open to a two-state solution. Greg Reese reporting.
Okay. Now let's talk about that for a minute.
$200 million. Wow.
Yeah. Okay, remember Kennedy took Israeli money too. And he took the money, but he still held to his conscience and he went after him, right? And if you remember, the colonel's comments were, you know, we're gonna have to wait and see what Trump does because he's taken all this money from them. You know, is he going to cross them? And that was the exact term that he used. So yeah, we're hoping that he crosses them, you know, because that's the right thing to do. But I hated the fact that he was talking about real estate. These are kids that have been slaughtered.
Yeah.
The man is talking about real estate. Now, granted, in the second part of the interview on the plane, he was saying how unfortunate it was, blah, 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 that people are dying. But I don't want to see my president, and I'm going to be frank here. Sorry if I offend anyone. I don't want our president to be a bitch to another country. And Bibi has a lot of control over our government. All these evangelical Zionists, all of our conservative Christians.
Yeah.
He's got all of that control, and that really, really concerns us. So,
yeah.
So, another question. What was it? I lost my train of thought. So he said the Arabs will pay. Who's going to pay? Look, I get it. Israel bombs the Gaza area, gets rid of the Palestinians. They move in. They've removed all Palestinians. It's now a Israeli controlled area from the standpoint of they're going to let their citizens move in. But let's say that doesn't happen for an extended period of time. Who pays for rebuilding that? Because that clip you just played, I think, he said Trump or someone is going to get the Arab nations to help pay for that. They're not going to pay for that.
No, he's going to try and get them to bring them in. Now, I don't know as far as building houses in other countries. It seems to be that he's insinuating, they're not going to come back. We're going to build them houses, somewhere else in Egypt and these other places.
Oh, okay. All right. And then just leave that place so that the Israeli government comes in and takes over and then rebuilds everything for their citizens or whatever. Okay. Because I was like, nobody's going to pay for that unless it's us, the United States.
Yeah. Now, originally, Bibi wanted all of those Muslims to be deported over here. Notice how Bibi doesn't want anyone in his country except for quote unquote Jews that are really Khazarians. But yet he has no problem flooding our country and destroying our country from within through replacement migration.
Or flooding Europe the way he's done.
Yeah.
Or all the other Arab countries the way he's done.
Yeah.
And Trump, he's just talking about symptoms. He's just masking symptoms. He's not really getting to the root of the problem, which is what I hope he does. And I think Colonel McGregor is right. He would just like it to disappear, just the whole issue just to go away and disappear. However, Colonel McGregor is right. Israel controls our government. So he, as the head, our commander in chief, he has to deal with it or not. And we'll see.
Well, and I was going to say he could spend his 4 years just kind of kicking it down the road, just doing, just playing it as little as possible.
I've got an idea. Hang on, everybody stop. I've got an idea. What if there is evidence that Israel killed JFK? Would that not be an awesome ace up your sleeve? Because if you now came out and you crossed them the same way JFK crossed them, and you've got that up your sleeve, because if they kill you, look, America, look what they did to 2 United States presidents. So
right,
that could be interesting. But I tend to agree with Stu that I think any information is gone by this time. I don't see, if they're willing to kill a president, they're not going to leave all the evidence for you to discover someday. But maybe that's
well, I mean, you look at 9/11 and all those things. I mean, it's taken years for it to come out, just the little bits and pieces that we've seen about what the involvement was with the Israeli government, with the little it was the little embassy there that they told them to get out 5 days before it was going to happen, and then this video comes out of them showing with the lighter on the Twin Towers. I mean, none of that came out even for the first, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 years, and it's now coming out. So I think the official government documents, how much did they document on this? is the question for what you're saying is the involvement.
Look what happened with January. Look at the January 6th committee. Look what they did. They had no problem destroying all the evidence. I mean, and that's just something recent.
Right.
And then think about something that's taken place over 60 years and how much time they've had to get rid of evidence.
And I think it comes down to, I think certain people, and maybe JFK's been going on long enough that those people are dead, but certain people sit on things for a while, I guess is my point, because if you even look at 9/11 and those things that have come out, it's come out not from a official government, Freedom of Information Act. It's come out because people have released it over time. Maybe the JFK thing's too old and those people are dead. Maybe their grandchildren will do it or whatever. But I think there's probably evidence that people have been sitting on that could be released once they feel comfortable in doing it, especially if they understand the full, ramifications of what happened to them. And it's like, well, I don't want that to happen to me. Let's wait about 40 years and 50 years and then let's release it. Yeah. I don't know. We'll see.
Well, what did you think about RFK Jr.'s well, my dog here is having a hack attack. He's before the committee today. They're grilling him, and the one that really piqued my interest was Warren Pocahontas, and she's trying to drill him like, you're just gonna make money. You're gonna make money off of your position, and you're gonna sue these vaccines, and we want you to agree not to sue any vaccines, while you're holding this position, and then 4 years afterwards. And if he only knew, the best counter would have been, well, according to our records, you're second in place receiving the most money from Pfizer. So from Big Pharma, you're second of all of our politicians getting the most money from, and yet you want to lecture me on kickbacks and corruption?
And I can't believe they reelected her, but they did. And actually, I've got a screen that shared that. We'll play that real quick here. Oh, I forget. He's got to do something. What does he do on his? What do you do, Mike?
What's that?
Got something to share.
I said I'm going to share actually just exactly what you're talking about.
A financial stake.
Here we go.
That you will not take a financial stake in every one of those lawsuits so that what you did, Secretary, will also benefit you financially down the line.
I'll comply with all the ethical guidelines.
That's not the question. You have said
you're asking me, Senator, you're asking me not to sue vaccine pharmaceutical companies. Yeah, you are. That's exactly what you're doing.
No. Look, no one should be fooled here. As Secretary of HHS, Robert Kennedy will have the power to undercut vaccines and vaccine manufacturing across our country.
Oh, man.
What a Karen, man. She is.
Yeah, I mean, it's ridiculous. No, he's saying that he's just going to expose the truth and let the chips fall where they may. And then, if people get sued because they've done,
then she doesn't get her money.
Well, I know. And you know what's wild is she's backed not only by pharmaceuticals but big banks, because she's still fighting crypto, even after the fact that pretty much everybody now from on the government side is for it. It's just, and even the banks that supported her. It's, man, I just don't get why they re-elected her, man.
Or did they? Did they really though?
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
looking at our elections.
Exactly.
Well, we have a couple of comments here. Deb says that she doesn't know for sure, but one of the drivers killed Kennedy. Yes, we showed that video, and that video is actually a lot clearer, where the gunman turns behind and shoots him in the head. He had been shot in the throat, and he's doing this, and his wife is trying to comfort him, and realizing that they didn't kill him, the guy turns around and shoots him in the head. And that video was released, I think, like 15 years later or something like that. So
yeah, we watched it last time. My question:
it's a rough video. I can't make 100% dogmatic, call on that one, but it is rather interesting.
I mean, you kind of see movement, but maybe it was because he heard the gunfire. My question is why didn't Jacqueline see that? So let's say it happened. She would have seen that. If he had
because she's looking at her husband trying to deal with the but
if his head goes back like this and literally it's maybe 3 feet from you, even with a suppressor, you're going to hear it. You're going to feel it, right? I mean, you're going to feel and hear things from that.
Well, they're saying
gun.
it was a CIA gun that they had back then that was an electric. It made no noise. It made no smoke.
Oh, is that what they said with the video?
Yeah.
Possibly, but it's definitely something to throw out there as a possibility.
Yeah, it's interesting, but I don't know.
Well, what else do we have anything else going? Because I don't think, other than, of course. Oh, you know what? I would have loved to seen the colonel that I led with tonight, McGregor. I would much rather have him in the position that Pete Hegseth is in than Pete Hegseth, because Pete is just a total Zionist. Yeah. He even promotes dual citizenship with Israel in our government, which is total treason. So that tells me he doesn't know anything about the Constitution. That's scary as hell. And then on top of that, he's just a full-blown Zionist, wants the greater Israel project so he can get Armageddon, and so he and his 20 kids can get raptured. And it's just like, I'd much rather have a seasoned older gentleman like McGregor that's calm. You want cooler heads to prevail, and he realizes that Israel's controlling our government, and he would be there to help Trump. This is how we cross these guys and get away with it.
So I looked him up just to maybe throw a little context into who this Colonel McGregor was, and now I've lost it. But anyway, he was backed by Trump. Trump tried to get him the Germany. What is it? Hang on. He was trying to get him in to be the ambassador to Germany, and they said no. So it's almost like the government in Washington doesn't like him.
Well, for obvious
reasons. Because everything that he tried to do, and of course, when Biden came into office, he got rid of him immediately.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Tucker's had him on. That's how I was introduced to that guy. Is Tucker had him on a lot, and he always made sense. He was not a war hawk like all these other generals and colonels you saw on TV on Fox, and he always. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, of course, they wouldn't make him an ambassador to Germany. I mean, how many years have they spent obfuscating and drilling in this theory of what happened in World War I and World War II into our heads?
Mm-hmm.
Of course, they can't have someone go in who questions the narrative and can prove questioning the narrative. I mean,
the U.S. Senate blocked the nomination for that ambassadorship in 2020.
Of course.
And then he became a Pentagon spokesman and was hired to serve the senior advisor to the acting Secretary of Defense, a post he held for less than 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
Trump also appointed him to the board of the U.S. Military Academy, and then Biden terminated him immediately in 2021.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Because he's obviously opposing. So
right.
He's not.
It was interesting. Tucker Carlson had a podcast episode on. He had, and I don't know what you guys think of Matt Taibbi, but he had a interview with Matt Taibbi just talking about all the top secret information and all these things that Trump is going to release and kind of what Matt thought about all that. And it's really good. It was good to hear. It was about an hour long. It's worth listening to if you have Tucker on your podcast. But one of the things, so he basically said, you know, what are you interested in seeing or hearing about? And he goes, man, it's a long list of things. He said, but my number one is during the Biden administration, especially the last year and a half, who was running our country?
Right.
And he goes into, you know, all these possible you know, opinions of who it might be, and Tucker had an opinion as well. Anyway, it was a great interview. I'm putting that out there for anybody that's interested. It was really good to hear.
I hadn't watched the whole thing. I just saw one small, like, little minute of it, and it was that one. Yeah.
No, it's good. Because it does. I think that's an interesting question. Is, you know what, if we're going to be transparent here, and you know, with his new press secretary that came out, and she said, well, look, I'm just speaking truth here. I don't know, did you see her? It was yesterday.
Yeah.
Fielding all the questions. 27 years old. She doesn't bring a binder out. It's all in her head.
Yeah, she's really good.
So that's going to be interesting to see how long that lasts as the Trump administration heats up.
Well, and Alex Jones might show up next week.
Well, that was the other thing, is she said that they're proposing that other content creators are going to be invited in as press, which I think is great. And yeah, Alex, I guess you're referencing the post he put on X about how he's going to Washington to.
Yes, I do want to say this. Now I played a Greg Reese video, right? And Greg Reese has been very outspoken against Israel. So Alex has been a shill for Israel. And I told you before, he wouldn't let Stu Peters back on his show.
Right.
Well, and he wouldn't let the other guys that work for Alex have him on the show so that they could promote his new movie Occupied, which I recommend to everybody. But now Greg Reese has boasted over the years, oh, you know, Alex has let me do whatever I want to do. I have the freedom to do whatever I want to do. He doesn't tell me the content. And now he fired him.
Oh.
So Alex Jones is really into kissing the butt of the Trump administration, the Zionist administration. He doesn't want to speak to power, which is his job as a journalist. And I'm I'm very disappointed in the guy. I still listen to him because he's knowledgeable on some stuff, but I won't financially buy products or anything until he shows me that he's a real man. And right now, he's not. So,
well, he's probably getting invites from the Trump administration and all of that. So
him and Roger Stone, they love going to the Mar-a-Lago parties and being on the crowd. So
yeah. True. So, yeah, I mean, look, even with all of that, it is great. Look, all change doesn't happen overnight. These are small steps. You know, when I became a libertarian and, like I said, supported Ron Paul, oh, I was on fire and things need to happen. And, you know, none of that happened. Conservatives looked at me like I was crazy. Even the Tea Party people were like, what? You know, and now flash forward, I mean, what's that now? 2012. So now flash forward 12, 13 years, and now people are starting to see it. So at least they're inviting him in. More than likely, he's going to be the one that gets in there, but it's okay. That's good. We're taking small steps, you know what I mean, to get to where we need to be.
Hopefully Tucker also has his ear, because I think Tucker is nibbling more around the edges of the Israel issue than Alex Jones ever will. True. Given Alex Jones' marriage history and, you know, things like that.
Yeah, I mean, Alex Jones pretty much gave the red pill to Tucker, but I think Tucker is he's kind of, hopefully he's going to go beyond Alex. I'm hoping.
Yeah.
But we'll see. Anyway,
that'll be
my
interesting.
wife has got to hit the road as a travel nurse. I don't want to keep her too long. But,
all right.
unless you guys have anything else you want to close with. Any other thoughts?
No. No, I'm good. Let me say this. Trump came out with, no longer will our government label the speech of our own citizens as misinformation or disinformation, which are the favorite words of censors and those who wish to stop the free exchange of ideas. We will see how that plays out.
Except when it comes to anti-Semitism.
Right. So we will see how that's going to play out.
Exactly.
Oh, and everybody who's listening, we have another grandbaby on the way, sometime tonight or tomorrow. So just keep my oldest, Abby, in your prayers, and little baby Lucy.
Congratulations.
Yes. And my book on the Song of Moses is finished. It's just in the process of being edited. It's about 260 pages. It definitively proves that the end of Old Covenant Israel happened in AD 70, and that every New Testament author builds off of Moses' eschatology. So, and I haven't seen any work on this, so it's going to be exciting to produce.
Yeah, and thanks to Deb for being in the chat and participating with us. Always
Amen.
like to see her, so thanks.
She is awesome. All right, guys. Well, we will see you next week. And then Don and I will be up here in about an hour to do preterist apologetics. All right, brother. We'll see you next week.
Have a good
Yes, sir. See you guys.
All